Dr. Gillian Terry and Jenny Brown, both from the LSE. We're going to talk about embedding digital skills in social science curriculum. We'll be having some questions at the end, so kind of just keep your questions in mind and then we'll come around and hopefully have some time for that at the end. So across to Gillian and Jenny.
Great. Hi, good morning everybody. Thanks for having us. So I'm Gillian Terry. I'm the Deputy Director of LSE 100. And we're going to talk to you this morning, myself and Jenny Brown, who is the head of the Digital Skills Lab. We're going to talk to you about embedding digital skills in social science curricula and talk a little bit about an experiment, that we ran over the last academic year about embedding digital skills and particularly data visualization into interdisciplinary education. So first, I'll tell you a little bit about what LSE 100 is. So some of you may be familiar with it or with other sort of similar courses. Essentially, LSE 100 is the school's flagship interdisciplinary course for all undergraduates. So every undergraduate at the school takes this course in their first and second year. So they take it across half of their first and half of their second year at the school. So every term we have 1,750 students, which means we teach over 3,300 students across the entire academic year. These students come from about 17 different undergraduate departments that do undergraduate teaching, and so they're coming from a variety of social science backgrounds. The classes are organized, we have run about 60 classes per week, and those classes are filled with 30 students from a mix of programs. So we don't have sort of all the anthropologists and all the law students take the class together. In fact, they're all mixed up, and there's about 30 students in each class. And those 30 students meet for 80 minutes a week in a seminar. And that seminar is co-taught by 2 academics from different disciplinary backgrounds. And so actually, the interdisciplinary nature of the teaching also contributes to the interdisciplinary nature of the course, because they're taught by 2 academics who come from different backgrounds themselves.
So the Digital Skills Lab is what used to be called IT training. We got a little rebrand and a fancy new name. We run a number of innovative and practical IT workshops for the entire LSE community, not just the students. And we provide tailored sessions and advice for academics or for professional service staff. The project that we did with LSE 100 saw us providing advice on how to embed digital skills into the curriculum. But in addition to that, we offer 25 sessions a week during term time to help students do their own extracurricular skills development. And we also support professional certifications such as those offered by Microsoft.
And so this past academic year, we actually worked with Jenny and the Digital Skills Lab to embed digital skills into LSE 100. Rather than just sending students off to these workshops outside of the course, we wanted to bring it in-house and actually do something in the classroom. And so we did this with our new module that we ran called, with a module question, is there a path to global food security? So this was obviously a huge question that we tackled from a variety of different disciplinary angles, but within that we actually asked students to use data visualization software, and particularly they were using Tableau in the classroom to produce and analyze data-driven arguments, to test hypotheses, and to really just get in sort of the mud with these large quantitative data sets that had to do with food security. And these data sets were publicly available, so we made them available to students. They came from governments, they came from international organizations, and they really told a lot about global trends around food security. And that's really what we wanted students to do, is to sort of learn about the module content, so about whether there is a path to global food security, but using this data driven by data visualization exercises in the classroom.
So in addition to using the data science tools to deepen their interdisciplinary work and to improve their critical thinking, the students were also able to gain really marketable skills for their future employment.
So throughout the 11-week modules, we ran across a term, this module about global food security, and throughout the module, students worked collaboratively to visualize data from this range of real-world quantitative data sets. So we used things like global food price indices. We used data sets from the FAO, from The Economist, which has quite a large global food security index, from the US Department of Agriculture, and these were all, as I say, publicly available data sets. During the 11-week module, students actually created over 10,000 unique data visualizations. And we used, as I mentioned, Tableau, which is a leading data visualization software package that, as some of you probably know, is widely used across business and increasingly by academics. We're lucky to have Thierry and Adam from Tableau here today, so they're happy to answer any more technical questions that we have in the Q&A. So we can have a conversation with them as well. And so this is just sort of an example of some of the different visualizations that students came up with. They used the software in class, so we actually had laptops available for the students in class. Some of them used our laptops, some of them used their own. And they worked in groups, usually groups of 2 or 3 students, to investigate different aspects of global food security. So they looked at things like access to food, resilience against different types of shocks to the food system, affordability, food price crises, and forecasting. And then they also looked at correlations, so things like the relationship between food security and some other complex social challenges like climate change or environmental degradation or violent conflict. And these are some of the visualization types that students actually were able to create in class, all of which sort of enhanced their ability to then discuss these issues when it came time to think about the content of the course itself. And students also really became data storytellers while they were working on this module. We emphasized throughout the module that using quantitative data in this way was a way to tell a story, right? It was a way to make an argument. And so these are some of the dashboards that our students created during the first iteration of this module. And this was actually part of their assessment, where they worked in small groups to create dashboards that essentially showcased a variety of data on global food security and made an argument, right, about that data. So it allowed students to demonstrate their technical skills as well as their sort of more digital communication skills through data storytelling, alongside their understandings of global food security that they were gaining from our videos with academics and from readings each week. And as well, students were able to apply this to particular country contexts. So they're actually able to filter out the data from these huge quantitative data sets to filter that data for the countries that they were interested in. And students here, when they worked on this project, they were evaluated not just on their ability to create meaningful data visualizations, but on their abilities to actually construct a compelling and persuasive narrative about food security in whichever country they were working on.
So obviously, to develop the students' digital fluency in the context of their academic work, it required a pretty strong cross-institutional partnership. So the LSE 100 team, the fellows and the teachers, work with problem-based interdisciplinary learning. And the Digital Skills Lab develops practical IT training sessions through minimalist training principles, which focus on giving people a real-world task that they can engage with effectively. The LSE 100 teachers were fantastic to work with, if I may say so.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, got lost there. So bringing together the two sort of forms, there was some affinity, I think, in our approaches to how we try and educate people, whether that was through digital skills or in the more academic curriculum. It meant that the students were able then to engage critically, not just with the sort of academic content, but also with the use of a digital tool, and to think about how the data and the tools that they were working with helped them to understand the academic content of the course. So prior to this collaboration, a lot of students' engagement with digital skills within their courses relied a lot on what that course was, what their degree was, or what the particular academic that they were learning from wanted to do. And that meant that there were a lot of students who had rather patchy access, let's say, to digital skills development as part of the academic course. This allowed, as Gillian stated earlier, over 3,000 students in one academic year to gain access to really important data science skills. And the fact that it was a core element of their academic learning became very important, as you'll see when we show you some of the feedback from the students. This meant that all students, not just those in the more quantitative or with more interest in digital skills, were able to actually gain really important technological awareness and skills which will give them confidence to keep learning and to think creatively about technology's potential as they continue with their studies and move into the workforce.
One of the big things as well with social science in particular is this interest in the different ways in which knowledge is produced and used. And actually integrating data science into the undergraduate classrooms through our use of data visualization in LSE 100 gave students this additional avenue to consider these questions about knowledge production. And to think critically, as Jenny mentioned before, about where data comes from and also how we communicate with data.
So one of the things that I always point out when I'm talking about this is that LSE as a social science institution doesn't have the hard sciences and certainly doesn't have a computer science department, which might be the sort of obvious way to get digital skills into people's academic curriculum. But it is increasingly important in social science for students to have access and an understanding of data science skills and tools. We've got some quotes up here of the need for digital skills, but I'd also like to share with you a quote from the NMC New Horizons report in 2018, sponsored or put out by EDUCAUSE, which says that employers are increasingly looking for what they call a T-shaped graduate, which is somebody with very deep vertical knowledge of their subject matter and a broad set of horizontal skills, which includes things like teamwork, and the ability to work with data and technology. The structure of the LSE 100 course and the embedding of the digital skills within that allows us to help create that kind of a T-shaped graduate.
So from this experience, from this experiment that we had over the last academic year, we identified 3 key areas where we think that students can really benefit from the integration of technology, and in particular data visualization, into an interdisciplinary course like LSE 100. So the first one is this idea about using tools like Tableau to gain important insights into the course content itself. So by using a program like Tableau to ask students to engage in data visualization exercises, you're actually then asking them to provide you with evidence about the future of global food security. And as we work in LSE 100 in an interdisciplinary context, we truly believe that it's insufficient to look at these big questions of the 21st century from one discipline. So understanding the role of quantitative data together with the theories and the methods and the evidence that students gain from videos with academics and from their weekly readings allows students to develop a range of analytical abilities that expand the way that they understand and respond to these pressing social questions. The second one about knowledge production I mentioned before, this idea that what we wanted to do is ask students to interrogate, interpret, visualize data, makes them ask these critical questions about that data itself. So who collected it and what biases already exist in those data sets. And then finally, thinking outside the boundaries of their chosen disciplines. So engaging with data visualization as a core learning outcome for LSE 100 pushed students to reconsider what it means to address a problem like food insecurity. Not just as a budding economist or a budding anthropologist, but as actually as a scholar, a social scientist, engaging with a wide range of data sets.
So I realize I'm a little bit preaching to the choir if I were to sit here and talk about the importance of digital skills for employability and so on, but I do want to make a special case for understanding data and of data science tools. Our goal here is not to make everyone into a data scientist, although it is a very lucrative career, but it is to make data literates, or you might call digitally fluent subject matter experts. We want students who are confident in their ability to learn and to adapt to new technology as it grows, and to be able to think creatively about how technology can and will influence their particular area of expertise. Looking at data science in particular, there was a recent Harvard Business Review article about what do data scientists actually do. And it said that while tools and technologies are very important, the most important thing is that as techniques come and go, critical thinking and quantitative domain-specific skills will remain in demand. This was our focus with LSE 100.
So one of the things that we were able to do to help enable students, not just to gain sort of these initial skills in LSE 100, but to take those skills and expand and enhance them beyond their time with the course, is we were able to partner with Tableau and their UK partner, the Information Lab, to host some additional workshops for students. And these were workshops that were in business analytics, so they were well outside the scope of global food security, but they were for students who wanted to extend their skills beyond the core content of the course. They were also open to the entire LSE community, which expanded digital skills proficiency across all students and staff, not just those who were registered on LSE 100. So I think that these workshops were really an example of how to further development of these key graduate attributes that are demanded by students and employers alike, as Jenny has been talking about. And it's beneficial for industry as well as they work on the pipeline of talent. So Information Lab gave information to students who attended the workshops about potential summer internships, which is a part of the industry's efforts to address shortages in skills and attracting a more diverse pool of applicants, including those graduates from LSE. So we definitely learned a few lessons in running this module, and we actually ran it twice back to back. So we ran it in what we call our Michaelmas term in the fall, and then again in the winter term or Lent term in the spring. So we were able to build on some of our lessons the first time around when we reran the module. So a couple of those key lessons when I'm thinking about embedding digital skills, in particular embedding something like data visualization into a course. First one, slow down. We definitely learned this the first time around. We tried to pack so much into each class each week. We wanted students to get all the skills. And what we really came to realize is that this more gradual development of these data visualization skills and building in time for students to reflect, for students to review, and for students to learn in an iterative way, to be able to come back to the same sorts of activities and tasks week on week was really, really important. So mapping is a key example. The first time we ran the module, we got students to map some global data on food security in 1 week. Then the next week they came back and did something different, and we realized they had forgotten how to map. And so actually we had them map different data, but use that same skill set a second week, and kept coming back to it through the term. A second key lesson is this importance of balance. And by balance, what I mean is it really ensuring that the technology enables class discussions and debates. It enables other interactive student-led work in the course. And this was a direct response to student feedback the first time we ran this module. Students said, we really like these exercises, these data visualization exercises that we're doing, but they take up too much of the class and we don't have time to actually talk about what we found. We don't have time to debate and to discuss. And so when we ran the module again in the winter term, we were able to do that. And so we were able to sort of limit the extent to which we were using Tableau in the classroom. And we said, okay, now that you've got your basic map or you've got your scatter plot, let's talk about it. Let's have that interactive discussion. Another really important lesson was to develop workarounds, which meant creating detailed backup plans for if and when the technology failed. This is especially important if you're working in cloud-based server technologies, when servers go down, when the Wi-Fi in your building goes down, when you don't have access to data sets. This is a critical step that we worked on this year for sure.
A couple of other lessons. I mentioned before there was an affinity between the LSE 100 teachers' approach and how the Digital Skills Lab run their training. And we made an assumption that that meant that the LSE 100 teachers would immediately get how you teach technology. Unfortunately, while they all understood it in theory, when it came to being in the classroom and actually teaching technology, which wasn't probably part of their original job description, they tended to fall back to more directive or more demonstrative, I think is the word I'm looking for, demonstrative methods of training rather than leading through questions and encouraging the students to experiment. So in the second term, we tried to fix this by looking at providing the teachers with a little bit more knowledge about how we teach. We demonstrated it. We had them come and sit in classes with us so that they understood how it worked and encouraged them then to apply what they knew about problem-based teaching to teaching of technology. The other thing that we did the first time around was we did what we intended to do with the students. We threw them in at the deep end. And they learned Tableau as they were learning what they were going to teach. They all did brilliantly, but when it came time to actually teach in the class, they found that they weren't as comfortable with not knowing more than the students knew. So in the second run of the module, we provided some additional Tableau training to make sure that they felt more comfortable with being able to understand what additional things students might want to know or how they could extend that knowledge. We also obviously need to cater to mixed abilities. When you have every single undergraduate coming to do data visualization, some are going to be more comfortable with it than others. So one of the elements, as Gillian mentioned, as we started to spread out the digital skills training throughout the term and to focus a bit more on the balance, we provided some advanced skills exercises for those students who wanted to or had the ability or the interest to expand their data visualization skills outside of class. So instead of trying to get everyone to do everything, or all the skills, we did provide then stretch exercises for those who wanted to do them and didn't force everyone to take part in that. The feedback from the teaching team was very positive. It was lovely to be able to draw on a range of expertise from across the institution. The teachers found it quite valuable in reflecting on their own practice, being thrown into, well, they are thrown in anyways into a totally different subject matter, but being thrown into teaching technology, I think, helped them to reflect on how they do what they do and how they might do it differently. And it was important and interesting for the technical trainers to actually work on how do you do digital skills when the course isn't all about digital skills. So it was valuable for us in learning how to actually mix this into the context and make sure that we are not dominating or being center stage.
And I think this was a really important partnership for us from the perspective of LSE 100 to work with the Digital Skills Lab to help prepare students for success, right? So we were able to combine the academic engagement around the module, the food security module, with commercially valuable technical abilities. So this wasn't just a skill for students to take into the workplace, but something that actually enriched their work as students in their own disciplines. We're now working with academics from the Department of Geography and Environment at LSE who are building students' Tableau skills that they gained in LSE 100. So they're actually continuing on some of the skills that their students will have gotten from us in their own courses in their second and third year, when they're actually asking students to visualize real-time weather data from on-campus weather stations, which is quite cool, I have to say. And then finally, yeah, we'll leave you with some feedback from students. So this was following the first term that we ran this module. As you can see from these quotes, students saw the benefit not just in terms of deepening discussions and providing evidence for their arguments about global food insecurity, but also in terms of its real-life applicability and the closing of a gap as well, which I think is really important between the qualitative and quantitative students' engagement at LSE, their engagement with data analysis. So I think we'll leave it there.
That's it, yeah. So we have time if you have any questions.
Okay.
Hi, yeah, Stephen Way, York St John University. Obviously an inherent problem with data visualization is that it privileges the visual domain, and I wonder how you manage to accommodate the needs of visually impaired students within this process.
Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I know you worked with Sebastian on this.
Yes, so we did a couple of things. When we were planning to do this, we were very aware of the need to make this as accessible as possible. So we worked with, we have an expert within the IT service who is responsible for accessibility and ensuring what we do is accessible to students. We worked with him, and I know that he was in touch with Tableau and so on about what we can put in place. Obviously, it is a visual medium, and so the teachers did need to be aware, and many of them brought it up themselves and were aware of the need to do this. We did look at inclusion plans to make sure that if there were any issues, we were prepared for them. And I think we did have a few students who had some issues. We worked very closely then with the class teachers to help them think about doing it. I think it's all right if I share one story of a student who had quite severe color blindness. which obviously can be a challenge. But I think what it ended up doing in that particular class is really becoming a, if I may say, teaching moment for the class, as they all understood how they share that information and what kind of impact it would have. And this student actually was able to share what their experience was and get the students to think then critically about, what am I producing, who is the audience, and how do I get this story across for those who may not be able to see the full range of beautiful pinks and blues and all that I have done.
Yeah, and we actually then built that into the module for the second iteration so that all students learned about sort of appropriate color schemes and accessible color schemes when using Tableau.
I mean, I said it before you started, I'm so jealous because it's a great opportunity, but I was thinking all the way through, I'm originally a humanist and a qualitative analyst who has worked in quantitative work later on, but have you thought about having a qualitative component in this course? Because my experience is that people mistakenly believe that qualitative analysis is simple, straightforward and unproblematic, and also doesn't involve digital skills in any deep way.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the interesting things that we're thinking about is the types of qualitative data sets that we might be able to use around data visualization. And so I know that actually, I believe it was the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, created a Tableau visualization using qualitative data. And so it used interview data from respondents who were experiencing food insecurity around the world, and then you can actually filter the data by the words that they, so it's sort of like a text analysis. And that's the sort of data I think students would really benefit from engaging with as well, because it does give you this deeper sort of understanding beyond simply thinking through the statistical trends around global food security. We actually had students in their projects asking us if they could embed some qualitative data into their storyboards. And so we had some of them using sort of text boxes and things like that to put in quotes because they thought, well, I need that context to sort of give you a little bit more background to the quantitative data. Yeah.
Any more questions? Got about time for one more question. Anyone's got any? Yep. Okay. Thank you very much anyway to Gillian and to Jenny for a really kind of fascinating talk. And I think as Jim mentioned, kind of we're probably quite jealous of how you can get that kind of deep embedding going on. So obviously any more questions you've got later, please come and speak to Gillian or Jenny. Well, give it all down an applause. Thank you.